Lemon Amiga present. A Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga Playguide and review. In this week's episode, I am proud to present Lemmings, published by Psygnosis software and developed by DMA Design, released in 1991. I'm sure anybody who's even heard of the Amiga will realise that Lemmings is a mouse-controlled strategy game which features 120 levels over 4 levels of difficulty. It starts with Fun level, which is the easiest level of difficulty, and before each level it gives you the number of lemmings which have to be saved. In order to do this, we can assign a lemming a task, and having performed that task we can then work our way, literally, towards the exit. Each level of difficulty will of course get significantly harder, all the way up to Mayhem, which is the hardest of them all, and I've managed to complete most of these levels, not all of them I have to say, and Lemmings is definitely one of those games which requires the player to keep on trying. At first you don't succeed, these levels should be a doddle, but for the most part this game has a very shallow learning curve, and it will take the player many levels to start getting stuck. The icons at the bottom of the screen depict everything that we must do on the level, and sometimes it gives us only just enough elements to complete it. In this level you can see we have more than enough. All we have to do is to stop the lemmings from flooding the screen and send one scout out just to simply build a bridge over this gap and to tunnel through the rock which is blocking that exit. Once that is done, then we can simply blow up that blocker using the explosion symbol you can see on the icon panel, and the entire play area is very easy to understand. Out 26, well, those lemmings will keep on pouring out of the exit until we have all of them out, and in is a percentage. We need to save so many percent in order to complete these levels, and you have to do that within a certain time limit. To move the screen, all the player has to do is to move the mouse to the edge, and that will drag the screen across, or they have a map at the bottom of the screen which they can simply click on or drag, and that will take them to the lemmings. You can see them as yellow dots on the map, and that extends for at least 4 or 5 screen widths. Now that our scout has reached the exit, we can then send the others across, and that means blowing a lemming up, which is no sacrifice in this game because you have to blow lemmings up sometimes to reach your objective, and you don't have to rescue every single lemming every single time on every single level to complete each one. On this one it gives us a nice buffer zone so we can blow a few of these up, and now that we can see those marching like soldiers towards the exit, it can be very tempting to blow a couple up just for that little extra fun element. This all adds to the tremendous humour of this game, and the player can get tremendous fun out of this one way or the other. And on this level, we only have 3 minutes to rescue all these lemmings, and the levels do vary. You can see we have 40 commands to descend through that platform, and once all 40 lemmings have been given those 40 commands, they should head towards the exit. So these levels really are not hard to understand, and later on you'll see more of these levels exactly the same as this, only you have more lemmings to rescue and a lot less time. The secret to this level is to accelerate the number of lemmings pouring out of the door, and then you can give those commands nice and early. Wait till every single one of those walks as far as he can across that platform, and of course the rest is easy. The hard part is when all those guys bunch up and you have to be quick on the draw. By holding down the right mouse button at the edge of the screen, we can also move that screen quicker, so that's an extra aid to move that screen quickly, particularly when some lemmings are in trouble. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to rescue 100%, and in the We All Fall Down level, the clue is in the title, we have to save 100%. So sometimes there is no messing around. We can flick through the levels from easy, medium, hard and extra hard. This is the hard levels known as taxing, and from here of course the levels get a little more difficult, so let's move through a couple of the taxing levels. And the level design is best described as fiendish at this point. You can see a trap waiting to kill us, and you might think it's very easy simply to tunnel through these columns, but with a very limited supply of tools that we can hand out to those lemmings, it is made very much easier. And you can see Walker appears, and that changes to Basher when the horizontal tunneler is selected, and there is also a diagonal miner, which we have 2 of, and we also have a vertical miner who will burrow straight down. But fiendish is the word here, because if you get just one of these wrong, you will find that you do not have enough upgrades to get yourself out of trouble. And sometimes in uncertain death you can try all kinds of ways to get yourself out of trouble and build your way out of there using platforms and diggers and things that you wouldn't even believe. Sometimes it's even best to blow your way out of trouble, but when all frustration piles up, that's the only thing left to do. Even on the exit screen it says, I hope for your sake you nuked that level, and so sense of humour in this game is really great, especially when it uses the compounds of steel against us, and that means that we cannot mine and burrow, and we have to use bridges to get out. Unfortunately, the level starts with death, and you have to rescue those to even start the rescue. At this point the great sound effects really kick in as those lemmings start to die, and everything in this game has a great sound effect, and you might wonder how you're supposed to do these things, but of course lateral thinking soon reveals a way to do it. So as I speed this footage up, you can see building your way out of trouble like Bob the Builder is the order of the day, and perhaps like Fraggle Rock you burrow under the ground, assign all those lemmings their different jobs, and given enough time you can just build your way across the level. The plus and minus you can see will increase or decrease the rate that those lemmings will fall out of the exit, and sometimes that can be useful and sometimes not. There is also a climber icon as well, and a parachutist or an umbrella, guy, and you can assign those as we've seen, but sometimes the best laid plans still go to waste. Oh dear, it looks like yet again we're going to have to try again, and this time we can use the final icon to blow the rest of those guys up. The levels are very different from each other, and there are various scenarios in the game. In this one you can see some bubbling acid and a very lethal trap there, which is about to annihilate my entire squad. And moving through the levels you will find insane traps in this game, and traps which will kill us simply because we fall over those, and sometimes you might just die straight as soon as you walk through the exit door. So you never know in this game, it can be a nightmare or it can be an easy ride, and of course with a level like that all you need to do is to climb over that and to burrow in the opposite direction, and a level like that is very easy to understand and get through very quickly. And yet on the next level it could be an absolute baffler, and you could be there for at least an hour working that out. Having worked that out, it's easier said than done, and sometimes even if you know what you're doing on these levels, sometimes you can cock that up anyway and have to blow all those guys away even though you were 99% there. And so the retry factor on this game is not to be underestimated, as anyone who's played this game knows. You will be retrying some of these levels endlessly, trying to get just that bit further in this game, trying to look around the next corner and try to get to that next level. And hopefully you've played this game with a pad and paper to write down all the passwords as well, which appear once you've completed that level. It's a very difficult password to enter, and it's very long as well. But that means that you can go straight to any level and practice that and get further along the line. It's also so easy to mess up a level before you've even started it. The scout is fried in the burning fire of doom. We no longer are able to complete that level without doing it the hard way, and sometimes you can build your way over obstacles, and sometimes you can blow your way through them, and that aspect doesn't come any harder on this particular level when you have to select a lemming at random and somehow judge your way through all this burning fire of hell towards the exit. You can also pause the game at any time, and then you can inspect the damage in this case, but sometimes pausing the action before you've even started it is better, because then you can have a look around the level and not waste much time. Even though this water is similar to what a Commodore 64 could probably produce, and I've seen better Commodore 64 water on games like Kilowatt, it reminds me a little of the Agony water as well, which was used in Agony with a double layer effect. But as you can see, it's a very simple level layout, and all I have to do is to burrow through all of this, past that trap, and there's what looks like a dinosaur head towards the exit, and get through that teeth area. And what I like to do is usually send a scout out, do all the building work for me, and then blow up that blocker when everything is clear. And this level is very easy, all you have to do is tunnel through it. So the graphics in this game are, looking back, not too bad. You can see great art on the stonework and of the caves, and I particularly like that effect. And coming from a Commodore 64 background, even the background stonework effect in this cave blew my mind. But taking a look at this, the lemmings aren't very well defined. They are very small on the screen, obviously, and that gives them a very limited height and range and colour palette. But these 8x8 pixel squares came together by Mike Daly, who was working at the DMA offices, being the first in line the first actual staff member of DMA Design, and he created this 8x8 image of a guy walking, and that was refined by Gary Timmons into a very smooth guy walking, and that went into the game Walker, being designed in 1990 as a follow-up to the game Blood Money. DMA Design began with Menace, released on the Commodore 64, the ST, the DOS machine and the Amiga in 1988. They followed that up with Blood Money in 1989, and they wanted to release Walker in 1990 but was prevented from doing that. That eventually got released, of course, in 93, but the walking guys from Walker eventually turned into the Lemmings, which was released in 1991. After that, they then released a succession of games under the Lemmings label, and after this we will check out Oh No More Lemmings and one of the Holiday Lemmings games, which is also known as Christmas Lemmings, and the whole team went on to a whole series of Lemmings, of course, Lemmings 2, and then All New World of Lemmings, and many Lemmings games after that. And according to Wikipedia, the Lemmings games actually sold 15 million copies worldwide, if you count up all the ports and the variations of Lemmings 1, which we are covering at the moment. DMA Design were also closely linked with Psygnosis, and Psygnosis weren't shy of making some of their games appear in this one and cross-referencing their games and things like that. So you will see icons appearing in different games, cross-referencing each other, including this one, and here we find Shadow of the Beast. Some levels are meant for strategy and to tax the mind, and some levels are simply meant for fun, and this one is a prime example of that. And some users simply build a diagonal tunnel and then a horizontal tunneler to simply tunnel under every single one of these trees. Where the ground is, you can see that huge chunk of green grass. Yes, we can tunnel into that and avoid all this random clickery, but having mastered putting boxes around Lemmings and clicking on those, all we need to do is to bridge our way out and up to the exit, listening to this great music. And that's certainly one aspect I appreciate in this game, the great music, which is sometimes very atmospheric and sometimes very bouncy and jolly, which appears on every single level. And there is a huge number of different themes in this game, so much so that each level never becomes boring. I guess the most annoying aspect is the huge boing whenever any lemming enters the exit area, and boing boing boing, that's pretty loud in the soundscape of the game, and sometimes what appears to be quite jolly at the beginning gets on your nerves sometimes when quite a lot of lemmings have to patiently be waited on to get through that exit. If we run out of time and have to come back another day, we can write down that huge long level code, and that means we can continue from where we left off. And sometimes it's great to write down level codes of really great levels that you prefer playing, and then you can simply boot those up and complete those for a great ride. On this level you can see it gives us a false exit. There's nothing in that direction, and sometimes the player might be frustrated and died simply going in the wrong direction on some of these levels. But you can see if it isn't in this direction, well, X doesn't mark the spot in this case. let's scroll all the way into the other direction, and hopefully we'll find the exit there. And yes, these are red herrings. You don't have to bridge your way over that gap, and that would be pretty difficult, but you can see if we follow this direction, we have to manage to get up in the area, fall down that second ladder, and then dig across. That's the level over. And so, at first you don't succeed. It's pretty easy actually to make your way over there and to tunnel across. So sometimes these levels look more complicated than they really are.
Let's go!
And sometimes levels are much harder than they first seem. So you can see I'm having another go at this particular level. It's one of my favourite levels in the game, and it requires just a little bit of lateral thinking, of course. Just to give you some background on this game, Lemmings was coded by David Jones, who also coded Menace and Blood Money, and went on through all the Lemmings games virtually, except perhaps for All New World of Lemmings and the games after that. And he went on to Shipwreckers on the PS1 in 1997, and became creative director of Grand Theft Auto 2 in 1999. The graphics were created by Scott Johnson, who was also working on the Walker project at the same time, and created graphics for Hired Guns, Colonization, which is of course Civilization 2, and UFO Enemy Unknown, which appeared in 1995. To help him with the graphics, Gary Timmons created a lot of the levels in this game as well as the intro animation that you saw at the beginning of this review. This great music you can hear was mainly composed by Timothy Brian Wright, who we've already seen in Agony, and he also created the music for the Killing Game show that we've seen already, and games such as Amnios, Leander, and Aquaventura. And he was aided, well, apparently the original music was by Brian Johnson, the brother of Scott Johnson, who created the graphics, and he originally used apparently too many samples in the original soundtrack, and they had to be redone, and things like She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain was used instead of rock hits of the day. All the graphics in this game were drawn using Deluxe Paint, of course created by Dan Silva, and Deluxe Paint was synonymous with the Amiga and was probably the best creative tool on it. It was apparently designed to beat the digital paints, which cost an absolute fortune on mainframes and things like that, and Deluxe Paint came along and was the market leader for absolutely years, and the Lotus series and most of the games that you can see on the Amiga actually had the graphics created in Deluxe Paint, and I guess until Paint Shop Pro came out that was the standard, and it actually really defined an era. Lemmings also appeared in an official Commodore bundle to make up for the diabolical Screen Gems pack. They actually released the Cartoon Classics bundle, which contained Lemmings and of course Deluxe Paint and Captain Planet.
Sunshine on
greatest TV ads for the Amiga 500 released in the UK, and that pack was available between July and September of 1992, and I think that the Cartoon Classics pack sold more Amigas than any other pack put together. And those who wanted Amiga really wanted that Cartoon Classics, and those who had an Amiga were glad they had one. Unfortunately, on the Amiga we failed to rescue every single one that we needed, and therefore we're going to have to try that all over again. And it's not easy to get the required quota. Sometimes you might just be missing one or two, and that makes these levels fiendish. But as a bonus reward, sometimes you'll get some bonus levels. In this level we find the graphics from the game Awesome, which was released again by Psygnosis software, and we're actually going to release our Playguide and review of Awesome at some point this season, and in a few episodes time in fact. But for the moment we get to run a few lemmings among these creatures, and you can see it's very easy to get halfway across that stage, but how do you complete that level? Sometimes it's best to send a few guys ahead and even blow those up, just to create enough room to explode and build your way onto the higher section. Sometimes it's possible to build a bridge on the very edge of that guy and build a bridge across, but unfortunately I stuffed that up, and what first appeared a joy now becomes a very difficult level. I think it's superb that they included other Psygnosis games within Lemmings, and there is also Shadow of the Beast 2, and also another level which I'll be showing you, and typing in that password from a reference that you've currently written down isn't easy sometimes, particularly if you misspell something, but I'm actually taking these from the Lemon Amiga database, so hopefully they will be correct. And the level I'm actually typing out is one of my favourite levels in the game, yet another one of my favourites, and of course Menacing is in reference to the game Menace.
Let's go!
Some of the very few voice sound effects which still remain in the game are in this Menace soundtrack, and I always appreciated voice sound effects in an Amiga game, particularly coming from a 64 which didn't have too many. It's a pity that they removed these levels from all the other subsequent publications, and yes, Lemmings did appear on every single platform you can imagine, including the Philips CDI machine, the SNES, the Sega Mega Drive, the 3DO, and even the ZX Spectrum had a personally coded conversion for that machine, and even the Commodore 64 got a cut down working version of Lemmings. But with the Amiga mouse, it's certainly a lot easier to control than the Commodore 64 version, and all those versions which relied on controllers. And as you can see, I'm making a meal of this level, and it is possible to actually free Lemmings even if they are in blocker mode. You can simply tunnel underneath those, and that blocker will fall, and that's how you save a blocker. And sometimes you just have to blow those guys up. But there are tricks and tips to be learnt in Lemmings, and there are ways to save every single lemming on every single level. As I say, on some levels that's absolutely critical, and on this one we have to save 100%, but that is not the critical factor on this level. It's also very easy to figure out how you're supposed to get across from the entrance door all the way across to the exit. No, the biggest problem is the time limit, because this level is called Just a Minute, And the whole point of this game is it's very taxing, and it will deserve some brain power to actually figure out how you're supposed to do these levels. Not particularly how you save them all. No, that trap is virtually useless once you've negotiated around that. Know how to do that within the correct time. And as you can see, we are down there to 15 seconds to go, and the first lemmings are only just appearing within that doorway. Let's try that level again, and this time we have to observe precisely the right procedure, and I think it's probably best to release a whole lot of lemmings and pile those in the corridor that we're about to make, and then hopefully we can get all those across. And I've stuffed that up already. You can see 1, 2 have now died, so that means I'm going to have to retry that level all over again. Maybe it's third time lucky. And the retry factor, as I've said, is one of the main things about this game. It's addictive because it's so easy, yet so hard. Even if the player is finding the level difficult, at least they get to hear some jolly music, which is playing while they do so. And as soon as they mess up a level, of course they can quit at any point, and they can also blow up the lemmings on screen, and they can even pause. As I say, there is a nice pause icon next to that nuke, and we can take our time examining the levels. But by pressing escape, we can retry all over again, and sometimes we have to do that. Let's speed our way through and burrow across, and let's see if we can make it in time. 8 seconds to go. It's certainly not looking likely by this performance. Well, that's certainly not 100%, and so I'll probably have to come back to that level, because for now I'm absolutely baffled by it. And just in case you were wondering, yes, there is a 2-player option as well, and apparently DMA Design were wondering whether to have a link cable like on Stunt Car Racer, and then you could link these computers together, but in the end they just figured to have 2 mice on the same screen at the same time, and they invented the split screen Lemmings option. It's not made any easier because each side can only control their coloured lemmings, and you're not quite sure what side you're on at the beginning. But you can see the blue side is on the left with the blue flag and the blue lemmings, and the green guys are on the right, and you have to make sure the green guys get to that green exit and the blue guys get to the blue exit with a blue flag over that. And in this game, sometimes you can play co-op and help each other out, and sometimes you can blow lemmings up and really devastate the other player and really mess up your game. So sometimes it's really fun in 2-player mode, and obviously it starts very easy like the main campaign, but then that gets very tricky and taxing later on. Let's just speed up that footage and find out how well we did, because even in 2-player mode it takes that time for all those lemmings to walk all the way out to the exit, and again that's the second most frustrating part of the game, waiting for all those guys to march across the screen. But you can see I'm blue, and I won that by rescuing 1 extra lemming, and that means I get 1 extra lemming on the next level. At this point, the mayhem of the 2-player mode really shines to the fore, because we aren't really sure which are our lemmings and which are our opponent's lemmings, and we're not sure which direction we're facing either. And we can pause the game and we can even strategize, but at the end of the day, the most fun the player will get from this game is simply blowing them all up. Lemmings appeared very early in 1991, and by the end of 1991 the coders had actually created somewhat of a sequel featuring exactly the same coders and virtually exactly the same game, only with a whole new graphics layout. That was produced by Psygnosis and DMA Design, of course. That was known as All No More Lemmings, and this appeared around Christmas 1991, as well as a demo known as Christmas 1991 Christmas Lemmings. That was a 4-level demo with 2 levels from this game and 2 levels which are snow themed. But this is the main game, and of course it runs through a similar format to the original. There are 4 levels of difficulty, all containing 30 levels each, and you'll have to get through all of those 30 levels in order to complete that one campaign, and so there are plenty to be getting on with. And you can see the graphics have taken a slight hike, not by much but slight, and you can see the puzzles start off very easy to understand, again with the perfect learning curve to bring the player in. And just like the first game, it's very easy to see where we all went wrong. But looking at the tame levels, of course they are just as tame as the original game, and that means players of all ages can afford to spend time with Lemmings. And the very easy levels are of course very easy, and the gradual difficulty curve is so gradual it's almost not even steep at all. The format of Lemmings certainly hasn't been beaten, and even though there are very few clones of Lemmings, a few did try to appear on the Amiga, most notably Troddlers, which we can give commands to a bunch of guys and get ourselves out of trouble. But really the formula and the format of Lemmings is unique, and also particularly the sense of humour, which is pretty death-defying at the best of times. Sometimes you have to sacrifice to survive. Nothing more frustrating than escaping wandering around Lemmings, and sometimes they wander perfectly and sometimes they just wander blindly off the edge and get killed. But that's the random nature of chaos which is represented in Lemmings. All No More Lemmings features the return of the 2-player mode with infinitely more ways to help or hinder your opponent, and how to baffle the mind in 2 different directions. Christmas Lemmings 2 actually appeared in 1992, which was another 4-level disc with another 2 Christmassy themed levels, another 2 All No More Lemmings levels. And then in 1993 we got Holiday Lemmings, which was another 16-level game, which was kind of a mini game itself, and with a demo disc to go with that. And in 1994 we actually got Holiday Lemmings 2, otherwise known as Holiday Lemmings 94, and that's the 4th in the line and the final one in the line of holiday Christmas themed Lemmings games. And as you can see, the usual affair is there with snowmen to avoid, and Santas and Christmas pudding exits. And in this level what we have to do is to burrow diagonally and use 2 men to explode at the other side perhaps, and that might just get us through this unbreakable gap. And if we don't tunnel diagonally at the perfect angle, we'll just burrow up the bottom of that screen and die. Moving on to the scores, once again the lowest score is on the Lemon Amiga website. They collectively gave this 89%, Zero gave it 90%, Amiga Action gave Lemmings 90%, Ace gave it 91, Amiga Format gave it 92, CU Amiga gave it 94, Acar Magazine gave it 95%, Amiga Computing gave Lemmings 97%, and Amiga Power, as well as Amiga User International, gave this 100%. That gives this game an average rating of 9 out of 10, and of course the Lemmings appeal, just like Dune 2, never fades away. Thank you for viewing another Lemon Amiga Playguide and review. See you again next time.